How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Brooks Running reminds us that we're all powered by something. Whether it's the me-time energy of a run after a day at the office, the electrifying energy of your first marathon, or the infectious energy of a group run with your friends. No matter what energy powers you, Brooks has gear specifically designed to unleash it. So lace up and let it out. Let's run there. Visit brooksrunning.com today to learn more.
Icy Hot Pro with 2 max strength pain relievers. Targets multiple pain receptors. Ice works fast. Heat makes it last.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar. Zero patience for slow walkers. Those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night. Have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Welcome into the Tour Coach, everybody. I'm your host, Tony Ruggiero, as I am every week here on the Tour Coach podcast. If you've been listening for a while or you've recently started listening, you probably know that, or if you're new, this is really for you, but these are the stories and the conversations and the chats with the people that I meet in my journey in golf, coaching, teaching, playing golf. These are the fitness instructors, the mental coaches, the performance coaches, the other teachers, the players, and the people that I run into day to day teaching and coaching that I think shed interesting perspectives, have great views and information that can help all of you that love the game of golf play better, coach better, teach better, practice better. It's all in an effort to give you the best information. So hopefully you like these conversations here on the Tour Coach. We appreciate all of you listening and watching. And more importantly, or equally as important, we appreciate our sponsors, Mitch McConnell and Buick GMC, Blaine Stokely, Stokely's Midtown Garden Center, Taylor Martino and Rowan. And none of this would be possible without the folks at Shrixon Golf and Vineyard Vines and Bushnell. They've been with us forever. We're going to be with you, helping you play the game of golf better. Enjoy the Tour Coach podcast. Go find us on YouTube, Do Sweeper TV. Follow us, like us, comment.
All right, so and we are just getting some Tour Coaches in the can this week. This has been a great week, a little bit on the road. I'm here in my hotel room in Vegas, out here for a couple days, joined by my good friend. This is like the old coast switcheroo here. One of us has got to be on each side of the country at all times.
It balances the country out.
It keeps us. Yep. My draws are over here. Your fades are over there. So
exactly.
My good friend and one of the great teachers in the game, Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher. He's been on this a ton with me. I like to bring him on. Every now and then he pops out there with an Instagram post that provokes thought, discussion, might criticize people, but I think, and he did one this week and we're going to talk about it. But Brady, I think the one thing, and I said to you before we came on the air, was like, or recording rather, was like, hey, I'm not necessarily not guilty of some of the things that we poke at in these posts, but I think it's always thought provoking to discuss where golf instruction is now. What are we seeing out there on social media? Social media has become such a huge part of our industry, whether it's whether we like it or not, it's here to stay. And I think it's changed. I think social media and YouTube and all that has changed the medium to where people get their golf instruction. Like you and I've had these conversations, and I love Golf Digest and love golf.com, but like, I don't know that that's in a few years going to be the primary place people go. So I think it's important to discuss what's out there, whether you're a coach or a teacher listening to us, like so many people, or just, a lot of players. I have a lot of young players and up and coming, aspiring players and mid-ams that love the game and want to compete that listen to this. So let's talk about your post and kind of go through it. I think there's some good insight in there from no matter which way you're coming at this.
Yeah, so I put up a few clips. One of them was Nicklaus Player.
I'm going to see if I can pull this up and show everybody. Keep going. This will be great.
Yeah, the other one was Freddie, VJ, Ernie Els, and the other one had Bobby Jones. There you go.
There. So you can go find him on Red Goat.
Yeah, there's Nicklaus Player.
That's Freddie and Els, right?
Yep. And Bobby Jones.
Yep.
And so it was kind of neat because you don't get often tour players swinging at the same time on a video. And those are 3 kind of cool videos, and they sort of go through a couple generations of players, you know, that are great players. And one of the things that you see on all 3 clips is that none of the swings really look the same. You know, I love the Nicklaus Player clip is my favorite clip I might have on my phone because the 2 of them are hitting completely different shot shapes, you know, but they both have a similar finish in that, you know, the finish is there's helicopters on both of them. You know, Jack's going on a fade, so his left elbow's kind of high, and Player's wrapping it around the back of his head. And just the freedom and the fluidity of all of those swings on the clips is great. And one of the things it kind of reminds you of is that it's still a sport, you know, it's still a movement that should be unique. It should kind of speak to you as you're doing it. You shouldn't be trying to look like anybody else. You know, you should be trying to hit shots and make the ball do something. That's really what we're trying to do. And instead of making, you know, whether it's a TrackMan light up or a force plate or anything else, you know, you really are trying to play a sport. And it's okay if you have a little different move, you know, if the swing isn't looking like everybody else. You know, I mean, we've talked about it a million times, right? Like, I mean, if you look at some of the best players in history, and I throw Jack in there, to me, is still the greatest champion who ever lived, for sure. You know, you look at some guys that had great careers that people probably don't know that much about, like Hale Irwin, you know, won few US Opens, Bruce Litsky, great swing, never practiced. You know, look at Couples' swing. None of those swings are copied. Nobody's looking at those swings and saying, I want to swing like that guy. You know, nobody looks at Jim Furyk or Calvin Peete and thinks they need to swing like that guy. You know, and what's interesting is we end up looking at swings, and I'm not picking on the guy at all, but I'll use Robert Rock as an example. You know, he's got a really nice looking swing. It's beautiful, you know, and everybody salivates over it online. And yet, why? Why is this the model? And why aren't we looking at Jack? You know, the guy who won 70 times in 18 majors. And I think that's really the thing I always want to kind of reinforce with my students, and I try and promote online, and said, yeah, there's great looking swings and swings that I think that look like, wow, what could go wrong? You know, the swing, it looks so good. And yet the swing doesn't produce major championships. It doesn't produce PGA Tour wins. Sometimes it doesn't even produce a career on the PGA Tour. So I just don't think that we should be focusing as much on what the swing looks like and much more about how it works under pressure, because somewhere along the way, as you were talking about before we got on, about how, you know, have you played a tournament? This might be an important piece of information. You know, so does it hold up under the gun? And to me, that's the most important thing.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, telling a story from my visit yesterday with, you know, watching Butchie's, guy said something about a TrackMan and his numbers. And he said, the only number that matters is that one you write in that last box on the scorecard. Right. And I do think that we get away. And I, you know, I always, my first thought when you posted those videos was like, how bad would I have fucked all those people up?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm the first person to admit, like, hey, I think at this point in my career, I've gotten better for sure at not, not trying to force people into doing things. But like, obviously as a teacher, I think we all have preferences and we have things that we try to do. But like, I think we got to get away from this, you know, not picking on things, but there's training aids out there that say, I mean, if you can get your wrist in this, like, that's all you need to do. Right. And look, and I'm a big pivot teacher, and I'm going to tell you, just because a guy turns great doesn't always mean that his club face is going to be square. And just because a guy's club face is perfect at the top doesn't mean he's going to turn through it worth the shit, right? You know, I mean, there's just so many variables out there, and I think it's important to remember that. But I look at those old videos, and one question I'd like to ask you, because this is kind of when you post this, and I was pondering it in my travels, it's like, wonder how different some of those swings, especially the older ones, right? The way older ones, would they have still been as different with modern equipment? That's what I was wondering. What do you think about that? Because I certainly like the way the ball launches, and, you know, like with young kids, I think that's why a lot of the swings are very similar, is because we know how to hit it far now with that technology, right? So I'm just wondering, how much do you think that's played in to why some of those, you know, you go back to, the older ones, and the Bobby Jones and Jack and Arnie, do you think they would have swung any different? Would Jack Grout have taught Jack any different if there was, if you had these irons and drivers that we have now on the ball that we do? Curious.
I'm sure it would have. I mean, now you don't have to be as precise, right? I mean, you can hit all over the club face with the driver and hit a good shot. I forget which commentator said it, but I thought it was very true. He said the driver used to be the hardest club in the bag to hit. Now it's the easiest, you know? So you can swing way more recklessly with the driver and be effective than you could during Bobby Jones's era. You just weren't able to, you couldn't lash at that thing because the sweet spot was small. And if you missed the center of the face with the driver, you paid for that with a big curve somewhere, And I think that would have been different. I'm sure, teachers try to use the best means necessary or available to help their student play the best golf, right? And so we're all trying to get more information and learn from that. But I think that it's easy to think that, like you said, there's a secret in a training aid, which is total BS. If we're talking about, the one that goes on the wrist, and if that was the case, then you could just scrap probably 75% of the people that won major championships over the years, because they wouldn't be able to use that training aid effectively. Right. If it's just not.
And look, I'll tell you, I've used it. I like it a lot. Right. I'm not bashing it at all. I'm just saying, I don't think that I think we have to be cautious when saying any one thing is, can fix everything. Right.
I mean, you and I laugh all the time because you play a draw and I play a fade, and I can hit a draw, but I do it with the face very open. It's just my pattern. I don't move my body as well as I did when I was younger. If I put that pro sender on, and I had my right wrist with that much extension, I would hit my left shin with the ball. The face would be so close to impact. It just doesn't fit my pattern at all. Like, I couldn't do that in a million years. So it doesn't mean that it isn't effective for some people, which is, I think, what we know for all training aids.
It's a wonderful. It is. I've used it a fair amount because where I think it's great is with when you have a 13, 14-year-old and they're developing and they struggle with setting their wrists, creating square in the face. I think with developing players, it's phenomenal, because at times, to me, when those players are maybe not as strong and, they've created some funky movements because of the weight of the club and they're not as strong and developed. Like, I think it's phenomenal for that. Right. But I do think you got to be careful to say that one size fits all.
Yeah. I think what you said earlier was true, Tony. We both probably would have screwed up a lot of these great players had we had them at a different point in our career. Right. Where we didn't know enough about instruction and we thought.
And I still might. I'm
not going to say that I wouldn't either. But I think we both have gotten a lot wiser as we moved on and realized that there's so many ways to do it. And it's okay if you have somebody that looks a little outside the box in terms of their mechanics, because they can still hit great shots. And I think I always kind of go about, if a guy's hitting great shots and he's doing it with weird mechanics, I'm not going to touch that, because I'd rather just figure out how that works for him or her and keep them in that pattern as much as possible, rather than change them into something that I don't know if it works for them, right? Like, if they're really, really, really good and they're a little funky, I'm going to keep them funky. I just want to chart that so I know what it looks like and where they are. I'm not going to try and turn them into something that they've never been, because I know the one that they're doing works. Why would I do that? I just leave it alone, But if it's somebody who's never hit good shots with weird mechanics, or if it's a younger player,
totally different. 100%,
yeah, then you get a completely different thing. If somebody's looking like, Eamon Darcy at the top and their arms are over their head, and then that guy's Eamon Darcy, I'm not touching Eamon Darcy. I'm not going to mess with that swing. But if they've never hit good shots that way, then of course you're going to make it better because they're not hitting good shots that way. And I think that's a really important thing. Like, I think I get a lot of teachers, and I would include myself in this. When I started, I thought everybody had to do things a certain way. So no matter how they were hitting it, I was changing it, because I thought I was convinced that I knew more. And as you get older in golf, as we both have, we've grown up and gotten white and lost a little on top, we realized that there's just so many ways to do it. And you just are better off trying to wait a little bit, not say so much, not change so much, see if you can work within what the player's doing instead of just blowing it all up and starting over again.
What advice do you give to the player? This is, I've got a young, not as much, a guy I've worked with. I used to work with a good while, and then he left. He come back, and he's getting ready for Q school, and you get the guy, golf swing by his own, own admission is probably the best he's ever seen it look, right? It's back to looking like when he played really good when he was young. But scoring isn't quite there. My thought was, like, I think sometimes players get so into worrying about the mechanics and so into worrying about, how it looks that they don't focus on scoring, and they don't get enough reps just doing their short game stuff and all of that. And that was my advice this morning. It was like, look, you've said it looks the best it's looked, right? And on the range, you're hitting a bunch of great shots, and you're hitting a ton of great shots on the golf course. Like, at a point, it's learning to go apply what you're doing, don't you think? I mean, and how do you help? What's your advice for the player that, like, hey, their golf swing's looking better on video, right? I mean, it's looking better than ever, but, like, the results aren't there. How do you coach? Because I think those are interesting situations we get in, and often asked by tour players or really good players, and they don't always want to hear golf swing's fine, right? They want us to pull something out of our ass that's going to make the score better. But sometimes, don't you think the scoring isn't related to the golf swing at a certain point?
I 100% agree. I mean, it's trust, in what they're doing, believing what they're doing. Trust and confidence is everything. And a really good player, they need to experience success to feel confident, So if they're not getting the results on the course, then they're not going to feel confident, even if the swing looks good. They're still not hitting the shots that they want to hit when it counts. And trying to bridge that gap is a huge challenge. I try to do all the combines on the range with players all the time, because I want them to feel the stress as much as they can in practice, so that they can see success and then translate that to the course. So I try and train that type of pressure as much as I can. It's hard to do, but I think ultimately that's an answer I think every coach struggles with, is like, you have somebody who, especially in the case like you're talking about, I'm working with a girl right now who was number one in the world for 109 weeks. She was really good, and won 5 majors and totally lost almost every part of her game, And so I brought her back now, and she's hitting the ball great, and she's putting left-handed because she had the yips right-handed. And, it's this whole incredible journey we've been on. It's been a lot of fun. And now when I watch her play, she can play. She's hitting great quality shots. She's hitting the shot shape she wants. Her pitching got better. Her sand game got better. She's putting completely different with a ton of confidence, a lot of freedom. But how do you do that in a tournament? How do you translate that to go back out in a tournament when there's all these external pressures and all the built-in stress that you've had playing a lot of bad golf, under pressure over the years? And I don't know the answer to that question. I'm trying to figure that out still, because I think it's something, we experience, both of us, all the time with players, and trying to get them back is very, very tough. I don't know if that journey can be had, they may not ever get back to where they were.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Becoming the most valuable sports franchise in the world doesn't happen without risk. A man who's willing to bet it all, and the players ready to make their own luck. America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, is the story of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones's impact on NFL history. Featuring interviews with iconic 90s players and more. Watch America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, August 19th, only on Netflix.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Don't you think too, it's, you got to be careful sometimes, and I'm super guilty of this. Like, you know, I've had a few, you know, of your older successful tour players come, and or they've had success and whatever hurt. You know, you look at old stuff and you got to be careful also and not trying to make them who they were X number of years ago, because their body may not be the same.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they, you know, whether it's injury, whether it's just aging or whatever it is. Right. And, you know, so I think that's like, and that's kind of the, like, to me as a coach, that's like where the art of coaching and teaching is, and where it's not science, right? Where it's not just numbers, and where it's like your gut feel, like, I mean, can this guy get back to, or this lady get back to doing it? And, or is where they are now, can we adjust some things and they be just as good as before?
It's a really good question. And I think, you know, the girl I was talking about, she came to me back in July, and she said, I have 10 different swings. Which one do you want to see? You know, and I said, well, which one is your no brainer? She goes, I don't have a no brainer anymore. All I have is every swing I have had with almost every coach that I worked with. And I have whatever their spin of the swing was, that's what I have. And I told her, I said, well, and I looked at all of her old swings, and none of the old swings when she was great looked like the swing that she had when she showed up. And I told her, I said, look, here's the thing. I know that swing worked. You won 5 majors with that swing. I don't know if you can get a tour card with the swing you've got right now. So rather than continuing down a journey where I don't know if it works, I'd rather see if the old one or some form of that can work again. Because that one worked. You know, that one was the best in the world. So how do we find that one again? And that's kind of where I would go with it. You know, like, I don't know the other one. I don't know if the other one works. And it basically was a completely different curve. You know, she was a fader, and then they were trying to have her hit draws. And it was just way too confusing for her. She couldn't stand there and free up, you know, and let it go. And so
go ahead.
I was just saying, I with her, it just seemed logical to try and go backwards. You know, I knew it wasn't going to be the same swing because she's 10 years older than she was, but it's still very close. And when you look at where the club is going and the movements of the club and the transition and where it's coming into the ball from, and it all looks like it did before. And I feel like that one's something that she knows and that worked. And it's a shame that she was taught out of that, because she was taught out of that pattern and she shouldn't have been.
See, I think that's another really good point for coaches and students, anybody wanting to get better. Like, if you have something that works, right? Like, if you're a drawer of the ball, you know, and I always give credit to Lucas, was really great for me from a teacher perspective, because, you know, I had never maybe taught anybody that wanted to be a little more that much curve, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and wanted me to have it hit hooks, right? So like that made me have to think a little bit outside of what I was teaching, obviously a lot of my young guys at the time of it, and it's helped me grow as a teacher. But like it's interesting how great players will be so successful and somehow allow themselves get taught away from what has made them great. And I think it's such a valuable lesson for all of us that are listening to this. Like, and I want your comments on that. And then I've always thought that great players, the very best, just know what they do and really don't give a shit what anybody else does about with their swing or what they do, and really don't care. They just have the most intuition and feels and understanding of whatever it is that they do that makes them hit it. And I think that like those ones that maybe get lost don't necessarily understand that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're walking a tightrope, right? You have some players that want to get better, and so they're willing to take chances and try to improve things to improve their career. Mm-hmm. And then some of those times that takes players down a route they can never recover from, and I think that's a dangerous road to take sometimes. And it really, I think what you said is true. Like if they own something and they're not thinking about it and they own it, then I really think that's got to be where they stay for the most part. You can make it, make sure you're understanding the misses more. So when they go down a bad route on a golf course during a round, they know what they need to be adjusting. But I think it's dangerous when you're trying to change technique and somebody's already gotten themselves to the tour. They're already so good, right? And they've gotten to that level. They don't need to change much. They just need to keep making progress in their game. You don't get to that level unless you're able to play on that level. And not everybody's destined to be number one in the world. There's one person at a time that is. Sometimes 25th or 50th is as good as that person's going to get, and they're risking that when they change it. And I think that's you gotta sort of stay with what you're doing and see how far that can take you. And if it's to the tour and you're making a living out there, I think you're doing quite well. And you need to look at strategy and other things maybe instead of trying to dive into TrackMan.
That's what I think was actually, was really interesting when Bryson, going through COVID and coming out, made those changes, right? I remember reading something Billy Harmon had said on Facebook or something about it, but like, it wasn't like he was the 150th or 300th player in the world. I mean, he was a top 10 player. Right. That's a lot of risk to take doing that. I mean, that shows some real conviction. It shows some real balls. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that was what was interesting about that to me. And also I give him a lot of credit. I know he's with Dana now and he was with Como at the time, but that takes some guts to do that. And not everybody should do that, because not everybody would have. You could also argue, he won that US Open, but he's back kind of, to me, when you look at what Bryson's doing now, he's back to swinging much more like he did when he came out of college and first as a pro, right? So that would be one that was kind of successful. You could argue successful, making that change, getting away from it, but has ultimately decided what they're doing is to try to take it back.
Yeah, it wasn't sustainable, I think, physically. I think it was too hard on him physically. So he had to go back to keep his career going. Right. And he was smart enough to realize that. So, and he was in good hands. Chris is obviously a bright guy. So, it's one of if he's not the smartest guy in the business, I don't know who is. So,
not me. But so when you get one of those players and they've come and they're lost, and you look through that, like, what are the things that you look at to help them find their way back? I mean, what are you looking for? Is it just, do look at a bunch of video? I mean, where do you start with that?
Yeah, with the player I was mentioning, I was able to pick up video of her when she was number one in the world, off on YouTube and find it from other places. And I stole it. So I had a pretty good idea of where she was technically before she showed up, when she was great. And then when I saw her and heard what she was telling me, which is, I don't have a shot shape I believe in, I'm hitting big misses, and I can't hit the center of the face most of the time. I'm hitting the toe almost all the time, with every club. And you could see the wear pattern on her irons was definitely towards the toe. She's like, I just don't know what I'm doing. I know it looks better on video. She goes, I make a lot of swings where everybody says that's the best my swing has ever looked, but I can't hit it. And so it was kind of like, well, then we need to kind of figure out, are you starting the ball anywhere near where you're intending? No. Is it curving the way you want? Rarely. Are you hitting the middle of the face? No. I'm like, well, then you can't play. It's just that simple. You can't hit the middle of the face, can't start it on your line, and you're getting curves that are opposite of what you're trying to do. You can't even play college golf very effectively, Right. So it was just back to basic stuff. Like, can you hit the middle of the face? Can you start it on your line? Can you create a face path combo that makes some sense to you? Is there power? Are you bottoming out consistently? If those things are not the case, then we got to go back to finding whatever makes that make the most sense. And for her, she was a fader, and the club was out at P2 and laid off at the top and shallowing even more and coming almost over it. And then the head of the club was to the right of the ball before she hit it. And the club was exiting kind of under her hands and left of her hands. It was great. It was just a thrower's paradise of throwing the club left. And she turned into, the face closed and inside at P2, and then the club across and steep in transition and behind her. And then she's trying to do something through the ball and she's towing everything. I mean, we had to completely change the pattern to get back to where the club was coming from. So
I thought it's interesting, though, what you said where you started, though, was like the first thing that caught my attention was, are you hitting the shape of shot that you see or that you want? I think that's a big thing. I think if you've had success playing a certain shape, trying to get away from that because you think it might make you better is a dangerous proposition. And I don't care if you're a 15 handicapper.
Yeah, I agree.
Like if you're a 15 handicapper and you've always hit a fade, and you can, and you assess it. And you got to assess where your strokes are, right? Like, you could ruin yourself by trying to hit I'm not talking about a weak wipey slice, but what I'm saying? I think it applies all the way across the board.
Totally agree. And I think one of the good things about having somebody who's played well is most of the time they'll have some video of when they were playing well.
Yeah.
And at least you have a blueprint sort of that you knew worked.
Right.
And it may be that didn't get them as good as they want to be, and that's fine. If they're, a normal amateur is trying to improve, all right, that's cool. We need to make some improvements. But if they were really, really good, you have some evidence as to what was working when they were really, really good. I think you'd be a fool not to go back and look at that. It just seems like, why chart a brand new course, which is unknown, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I have something here that I knew worked. And I just got to try and figure out if I can get you back to something close to that so that you can feel the same way that you felt then. I don't think it's that complicated. You're not going to find that, in my opinion, by looking at other players' swings.
Yeah.
I already have her swing. I already know what I want it. I know this one worked. Why don't we just go back? This is your model. I don't need you to look like somebody else. I know what you look like. Let's just find you again. And stick with that.
That's such good advice for every player out there listening. Like, understand and have video, whatever, all the data you could have of what you do when you do good. Yes. I always tell people that, like, one of my big regrets is, so when I moved to the Country Club of Mobile, and, for a good while, we hadn't built a building yet at that time. And so I was just teaching out on a tee, but so during that year and a half, 2 years, especially, that Smiley played some unbelievable golf. I wish I would have had more of the data stuff that we have access to now, so that when he got lost and I could show what was on video, though, you could prove it more. Because, when a player gets crazy lost, it's hard sometimes to convince them of stuff when they start doubting themselves and what you're doing. So I think that that kind of goes along with what you said, but I think, one thing I do all the time, and like, when I get a swing that I feel like is pretty good and they just need to, sometimes I like just to put them on a rope with a stick out there and just tell them to go start the ball on line and curve it the direction they want.
Right.
Like, figure it out a little bit. Right.
I think that's what it comes down to. It's funny that you said it about the video when he was good. I tell every student of mine that when they're hitting it good, they don't need to see it. If they're playing tournaments, especially a kid, I don't need you to look at your swing on video. But if you're hitting really good, videotape it. Put it in your phone, and there's a file in your phone, an album. When shit was good. But you title it. You title it When Shit Was Good, and you throw that video into that album. Now okay, well, I remember I was in a really good and such in that place, and it's in my When Shit Was Good album. And now they've got it. They don't have to look at it at the time. They don't need to be thinking about when you're doing it really well. But have somebody tape it, throw it in that album. Now you've got it. And when things go bad, because they always will, then you come back to the album When Shit Was Good, and then you look at the two swings, and you can start to kind of try and figure out, okay, what am I doing different than when I was good?
And I'll add another thing to that is when you have good practice sessions and great rounds and practice, write notes down. Like it's not, don't just write notes down from your lessons or when you're playing bad. Like write notes down like, hey, I went to the range today and I hit it as good as I've ever hit it. Here's what I was thinking, and this is what it felt like to me.
Yep.
Right?
It's so funny you say I tell them to do that when they go back to their video and see it after the tournament. That was really good. I say write in the notes under that picture what you were thinking about. And it may help you sometime down the road when you're lost.
Also, here's another, I would kind of wrap this up with this thought, want your opinion on this. Like, I also think that you also have to understand that sometimes the path to getting back to play good takes time. And working on something, for 3 weeks doesn't necessarily mean you own it, that you can do it all the time and all of that. And I think, like I've got 2 guys playing Corn Ferry. They're in the, finals or the Tour Championship this weekend. And, they've been playing some really good golf, but each of them have been really working on the same couple things, 2 to 3 things, realistically for one a year, and the other one maybe 2.5, 3 years. Emilio, you've been around Emilio,
sure.
Right? Like, and I think that, but I also think that one reason that they've had success is understanding that sometimes they're on the right path and you still play bad, right? Because other shit goes into it, right?
Right. No, you're right. I think if they're seeing steady improvement at that level, they're doing a lot of things right. Mm-hmm. And they don't need to change what they're doing. They just need to keep working on what they're doing. And you get out there, you don't have to improve sometimes. You just have to keep going. You get better sometimes just from learning more as a player. You don't have to keep changing your swing to make strides.
And then wrapping this up with another kudos to you too. That's why I have stolen your shit like I do all the time, with the combine work, right? Because I think, we're talking about the player it looks good on video and it's back to where it was. Like, a lot of times you've just got to get way sharper at scoring skills and getting it in the right. And I think that, you have everybody wants to hit it better, but you look at their stats. Well, you hit it way better than the guy that's 4 shots ahead of you.
It's true. It's funny because I think somewhere in there, I always use Marcus Allen as an example. This guy's taught Marcus for a while, and he's not a huge dude. When you meet him, you're like, this guy was that good. Yeah. Heisman Trophy and phenomenal. But I always marveled at the fact that like 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, he was amazing at getting the first down or scoring a touchdown in that situation. He's not a big guy. Yeah. And I asked him one day, I said, how did you do that? He goes, I found a way. Yeah. I either go around them, under them, over them, or through them. Whatever that specific play needed, that's what I did. And I think good players find a way to get in the hole. And I think that's really what the combines do. Is you need to figure out how to be successful doing what you're doing in that moment. And you're not going to find that in a machine. You got to figure out what you got to think about and what you need to focus on. So I think you're right. That's why I love the combine so much.
You're the best, Brady. Enjoy the visit with your daughter out there.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man.
I'll take care of this coast until you head back. I'm flying back Monday morning. I'm going to do
and
it.
I'm flying back Monday also. So I think
we'll cross.
It'll all be good. We'll see you in the air.
Have fun. Keep up all the great stuff. I know we'll do this again soon. And always, look, if anybody out there's listening and you want some information on Brady's combines or something, just DM us, DM me or him. We'll make sure we get the stuff to you. But thanks as always for all your support and more importantly, your friendship. We'll just keep trying our best.
Indeed. Good seeing you, Tony.
See you, buddy.
You got it.